Hi everyone. Okay, welcome back. Okay, today is our day 2 for the webinar. So what I'll be covering with you today will be the specimen number 1. Remember, this is topical, all right? Hopefully by the end of the session, after we have already covered the syllabus areas, okay, we can actually come back to this particular specimen for us to actually, run through the questions again and solve this particular problem, all right? So let's have a look at our it's not appearing. Hold on. Okay, basically, all right, I'll be conducting the specimen. Okay, this is your sorry. All right. Okay. So you're all ready tonight? Hopefully you are. All right. So yesterday, what we have actually covered, we have already covered the on EPSM, and then we actually have covered on the effective leadership, and then we have already covered the optimizing strategic decisions. Okay. What I'm going to do today, before actually I proceed to the next syllabus area, all right, like I mentioned to you earlier, as I promised earlier, that okay, we want to go through this particular specimen number 1, all right, and I want you to actually identify the syllabus area, see how we can actually, help to unravel what's needed by the requirement of this particular question. Okay. So I'm sure that you have a look. I will be sharing you the one that I've already annotated, all right, okay, in the WhatsApp group. So if you're looking at this particular specimen, okay, number 1, this is actually the introduction of your paper. And then definitely here you see the one that I have circled here is actually you. So if you still remember that what I went through yesterday about the role, so this is who you are. And basically here you are the management consultant. Okay, what you are doing is actually you are leading a small team, all right? Okay, which has already been commissioned. Basically, you have been engaged to actually prepare, okay, a consultancy report. That means this is actually the task that you're preparing, okay? So it's to prepare a consultancy report for whom? Data Communication Services, KDCS company directors. So who are these people? Okay, who are these? These are your clients, and your clients is basically your audience. So you are actually been commissioned to prepare this consultancy report for them to help them plan for the next three years. So in this particular introduction as well, they did mention to you that DCS company has 2 product areas. Okay. The largest area, okay, the one that actually they are mainly producing is to manufacture data communications components, which it mainly sells to original equipment manufacturers. All right. And then they have another product which is smaller, okay, and less developed area, is based on a supply and support contracts for specialist IT management network system. Okay, these are basically domestic medium-sized enterprises. All right. Again, here it says that, okay, as you are the management consultant, you are also a qualified accountant. That's why I put an arrow here. You're also a qualified accountant. Your colleague are Danny, okay, Danny Lehman, who is actually a company researcher. And Freddie Lithium happens to be a part qualified finance professional. What's the significance of them highlighting this? Okay, remember, you are qualified, you should be an expert. Okay, and Freddie Lithium basically are partly qualified, so he's basically not an expert yet, all right, so this is something that you have to be aware of. Perhaps that he might actually help you to prepare something. And being a partially qualified finance professional, he has still got lots to learn. Okay, so you and your team have collected and analyzed the following information about DCS company to help you prepare the consultancy report. What's actually given? Exhibit number 1 is a report on DCS company's organizational overview, the external environment, and the business model sourced and prepared by Danny Lehman, your colleague. Okay, remember, this colleague of yours is actually a company researcher, so he's an expert in this. Exhibit 2 is a transcript from interview which was held between you. Remember, you are the management accountant just now. You are Hoi Lui, all right? And it's between you and Java Praya, the CEO of DCS company. 3, summary of financial and business performance of DCS company. Okay, extracted from the integrated report from 2012 to 2015, presented to you by the finance director of DCS. So basically, okay, you can actually gauge what integrated report looks like, all right? So they are actually applying the integrated reporting. So exhibit number 4, okay, the October board report, a recent board meeting notes, which includes strategic choices facing DCS company, presented to you by the marketing manager of the DCS. Okay, remember, you have this particular strategic choices facing this particular DCS, all right, presented to you by the marketing manager of the DCS. And then exhibit number 5, an evaluation of alternative future strategies being considered by the DCS company board, prepared and presented to you by your colleague Freddie Lithium. Who was he? He's actually the partially qualified finance professional, all right? So exhibit number 6 is minutes from the focus group meeting you held with the middle management of the DCS company. So basically, when you look at this particular exhibit, some are quite clear where you can actually gauge what should the content of the exhibit be. Like exhibit number 1, they talk about the organizational overview, basically the background of the company. Okay, they are also talking about external environment. Basically, it's about the environment that they are in, all right? And then the business model, okay, of this particular DCS. And when it comes to a transcript from an interview between you and the CEO, so roughly you wouldn't know what is inside there until you have a look at it. But number 3, definitely you'll be able to gauge that there will be a financial statement, which is actually an integrated report, okay, about the performance of DCS. So you can actually gauge that, okay, there's some kind of a financial statement that might be inside this particular exhibit. You have not looked at the exhibit yet, but by looking and analyzing your front page here, okay, the background of this particular question, you will be able to gauge what would be inside, all right? And exhibit 4, you know that the strategic choices. So basically, at the back of your head, you may want to know what are those choices that they are talking about inside that particular exhibits. And then number 5, they're talking about evaluation of alternative future strategies. That means they have done some evaluation on future strategies. okay, that are actually being considered by the DCS. And then lastly, you have minutes, okay, from the focus group meeting. So definitely you'll be able to gauge that there must be something, some agreement that they have inside this particular meeting. Okay, let's look at the first requirement here. Okay, TK here is actually the technical knowledge, all right? So from this particular requirement number 1, all right? The information you have collated, all right, that you have already collected and put together, all right? You are to draft a section of a consultancy report. That means this is your task. There's something that you have to do for the directors of DCS. That means that's your audience, all right? That's why I put here the audience. To include the following. So there are 2 things that you must have. Okay, so basically you can actually divide your answer into these 2 headings, 2 main headings. Remember, this is question number 1A. Under 1A, you have 2 parts. So the structure of your answer would be you would have a draft section of this particular consultancy report for the directors of DCS, all right? And then this particular draft section should have 2 parts because it says here to include the following. 1, an analysis of the industry and market which DCS company is competing in. Do you notice that I've already like scrapped the last part here? So why? Because in your actual exam, okay, they do not mention about the use of any models. All right, so that's the reason why I scrap this. Okay, and then I just want you to actually look up to this particular, you know, full stop that I have here. And then the next part that you have is an evaluation of an overall performance of DCS company between 2012 and 2015 from an integrated reporting perspective. Okay, what do you think would be the syllabus areas? When I say syllabus area, I'm talking about the technical knowledge that you must actually have, okay, in order to help you to actually answer this particular question. And bear in mind, the question verb here is actually analysis, all right? So you are supposed to be analyzing the industry and market. I've already put down here what analyze means, okay? Basically, you have to break it into separate parts and discuss, examine, interpret each parts. The key tips for how you are going to address the analysis is to give reasons for the current situation or what has happened. All right. So the kind of reasons of the current situation or what has happened is that, okay, it will be in the context of the industry and market that DCS company is competing in. And when you look at industry and market indirectly, okay, your technical knowledge that you should actually retrieve from your CPU, all right, is actually optimizing your strategic decision. Okay, you have an original CPU which you have to retrieve your files, so you should remember that, all right, your memory. So optimizing strategic decision was what you have already covered yesterday. All right, and under this particular optimizing strategic decisions, okay, as you retrieve through, you cascade it down, and then the syllabus areas is actually dealing with external environment. And under this particular external environment, you have macro and micro environment. And when it comes to industry and market, basically you are looking into the micro environment. So automatically you'll be able to retrieve your files, from your CPU that, oh, this is your Potter's 5 forces that can actually help you to structure your answer. All right. So with the 15 marks, basically Potter's 5 forces, you have like how many elements? You have like 5 elements. So, but bear in mind, even if you have this particular 5 elements, not necessarily that you will have all these particular 5 elements existing inside your exhibits, right? But basically, these particular 5 elements should actually be there at the back of your head to help you structure your answer. So you should at least by now thinking of what? Potter's 5 forces, and under Potter's 5 forces, you should be thinking about the threats from new entrants. You are talking about threats from substitutes, all right? And then you may think of the bargaining power of buyer, talking about bargaining power of supplier, and then lastly is about the competition and rivalry. Okay, so 15 marks, roughly like, you have this particular 5 points, and each of those particular 5 points should actually carry about 3 marks. Okay, in the previous webinar, and I will be actually touching this later under your exam techniques. Okay, if let's say you have 15 marks here, I always tell my students to actually, all right, target for 2/3 of the marks at least. When you write your answer, at least you target for 2/3 of the marks, not half. Okay, bear in mind. Okay, if you are asking me why 2/3, because some of the examiner mentioned that it's enough for you to get like 50%. That means half of the marks. I would like to have the buffer there, in such that, okay, if you are asking me, my mother tongue is not English, it's a Malay language, all right? Perhaps that when we write, okay, we might not be able to express our idea clearly, so we might not get any marks for certain points. So to make sure that you will still be able to pass, let's target 2/3 out of your 15 marks. So 2/3 out of 15, definitely like you will pass. Hot, hot. Excuse me. All right. Okay, my apology. So if it's actually 2/3, how much do you think that you should actually be focusing on? All right. At least you have 10 out of 15 marks. So if you are able to focus on 2/3 for every question, so eventually you'll be able to actually pass your exam. All right. So I hope you are clear on that. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Why am I actually not focusing so much on pastel? Yes, pastel can help you, can be the source of, okay, this particular external environment. But basically, this particular question is focusing specifically on industry and market. So this is actually your micro environment. All right. And to analyze your micro environment, okay, maybe we want to pay attention to actually five forces. All right. So the next part that you're going to have here is actually an evaluation of the overall performance of DCS company between 2012 and 2015 from an integrated reporting perspective. So technical knowledge, basically we are talking about integrated reporting. So at the back of your head, integrated reporting. So you may have the 6 capitals, okay? And remember this particular 6 capital, they are focusing on the process, okay? It's not the products, all right? So the report is focusing on the process and not the products, all right? So basically, and when you are asked to evaluate the overall performance, you might be actually into integrating part of the financial analysis, because under your 6 capitals, you will have your financial capital. And to analyze your financial capital, you need to have, okay, the understanding of financial analysis to help you to analyze that particular financial capital. Yeah, it's an integrated, okay, areas. So you might want to look into this particular evaluating and enabling strategic change, which we will be covering later. All right. So 12 marks. All right. So 12 marks, aim for 2/3. So you'll have 8 marks. Okay, that you want to target for. And remember, the question verb is actually evaluation. So when it comes to evaluation, okay, you are supposed to evaluate. Okay, basically I have put this particular question verb down here. Determine the scenario in the light of the arguments for and against. And your key tips is actually to mention the evidence, case, point, issue to support that particular evaluation. And the professional skills that are actually being tested. Okay, the professional skills that are actually being tested here are your analytical and evaluation skill. So basically, analytical skills, you're supposed to be demonstrating that you are doing some investigation. Definitely when you do analysis, all right, you are investigating, all right. Why do I say that investigate? When you investigate, it means what? You'll be looking for evidence. For you to actually explain on that particular Porter's 5 forces, you'll be looking for your evidence, and your evidence will be where? In your exhibits. And when you start using it, okay, into your exhibits, you are actually demonstrating that you are inquiring something, and at the end, you are considering, okay, the kind of actually competition that they have actually in that particular industry and market. All right. So the way that you put your evidence together will actually demonstrate the analytical skill. And for the second part here, all right, where you have evaluation skills, you're supposed to be demonstrating your ability to assess, estimate, and appraise. So by you actually doing your evaluation indirectly, okay, you'll be assessing, okay, the information, and you're trying to make your estimates. When you start, doing your analysis, you are estimating something, and at the end, you are trying to judge the worth, okay, on the overall performance, whether it's good or it's not good. So basically, once you have all these particular elements, all right, okay, in your answer, you are actually demonstrating the professional skills. All right. So make sure that when you write your sentences, you must have element of assessment, estimate, and appraise. 4 marks for that. Okay. So eventually, if you can get like at least professional skills, you may be able to get like 2 or 3 marks. All right. And another part of this particular first requirement is, okay, this is your part B. You are now reviewing, okay, the transcript. So now we are talking about the transcript that you have at the back there, okay. remember, you are given an overview what the exhibits are given, and then after that you have not read the exhibits yet, and now you are going through the requirements. Okay, it's important for you to go through the requirement and understand it, because by the time that you start reading your exhibits, okay, your requirement is already at the back of your head. Okay, so that as you read through, you will have an active reading, and you'll be able to actually pick up your points, okay, for the requirements that you have. And if definitely we are human beings, we can actually remember what it is, okay, the whole of the requirement. If you can remember the whole thing, is good, all right. But if you ask me, I don't have that photographic memory, all right. So what I do is that every time that I start reading each and every of those particular exhibits, okay, let's say if I were to start analyzing the requirements from 1 until 3 or 1 until 4 or 1 until 5. Remember, you have these particular 3 options. Question can be 5, question can be 4, question can be 3. For the last 3 exams, you have September 2018 with 4 questions. You have December 2018 with 3 questions, okay? And then you have March 2019 with 5 questions. So this coming June, I really have no idea, okay, whether it's going to be like 5 again, or maybe it starts the cycle with 4, 3, and 5, or you may have 3 questions. I don't know. All right. But regardless how many requirements of the questions given to you, just make sure that you are mentally prepared to expect the unexpected. All right, so that you can calm yourself down. This is a professional exam. There's always something that is unexpected. All right. So once you are mentally prepared for the unexpected, you'll be able to address the question better. So I hope you are all clear on that. Okay. So basically, this particular information that you have up here, okay, is a background of this particular B, telling you about what is inside the transcript. All right. And you are now reviewing it. And what happened is that you have identified some key weaknesses, okay, actually relating to the governance of DCS company, which you want to include in the consultancy report. Okay, so when it says here that, okay, it's weaknesses relating to the governance of DCS, automatically this actually tells you what? Oh, the technical knowledge must be effective leadership. But let's have a look at the requirement again. Okay, you are asked to explain. What does explain means? You make clear, show logically how a concept is actually being developed. All right. So you are not just to provide a list. Okay, you are supposed to be giving the reason for an event. All right, and then you are supposed to add some explanation of your points that you are discussing. If you notice that question number 1 here, it's a whole lot of chunk of marks here. You have 15 marks followed by 12 marks and then move on to 12, another 12 more marks. So this is what you have is actually in your question number 1. All right. So under this particular requirement, you are asked to explain, and you are asked to recommending how. All right. This is what you have here. Recommend means advice, the appropriate actions to pursue in terms of the recipient, okay, will understand. That means you're supposed to give advice or counsel. So you are supposed to be giving advice on how that they should actually be addressing these particular issues. Okay, what is it that you are asked to explain here? Key weaknesses of the current governance structure of DCS company since it became a public limited company. Why do I circle this? What is so significant, all right, of this particular sentence since it became? What was it before? Okay, you should actually, it triggers, okay, how you should be thinking and how you should be actually looking at it since it became. That means before this it was not. All right, so indirectly this tells you what? Under this particular technical knowledge, you are looking into the key weaknesses of what? A governance structure in relation to the change in ownership. All right, and then once you know the key weaknesses, since it became a public limited company, all right, you need to be recommending how you should be addressing these particular key weaknesses. All right, so the professional skills that you are supposed to be demonstrating here will be skepticism skill, all right, and your analytical skills. All right, so basically when it comes to your analytical skills, what do you think that you should actually be demonstrating? Okay, you should actually probe, question, and challenge. All right, so let me just put there. So basically, oh dear. You should demonstrate, all right, probe, question, and challenge. All right. Analytical skill is the same as up here: investigate, inquire, and consider. All right. So when you are asked to demonstrate this particular skepticism skill, if you notice that anything to do with the weaknesses like governance structure, basically the kind of professional skill that you are asked to demonstrate will be skepticism. And at the same time that if you are able to recommend how, here you are supposed to be demonstrating as well the analytical skills. All right, that means why do I say analytical skills? You are able to actually investigate, all right, and then you are able to estimate, and you are able to actually consider. So how are you all outside there? All right, I hope, do you have any question? Wow, there are questions. Hold on. Okay, let me just go through one by one. So you are asking me if you have to write 5 points on 15 marks. Okay. Then each point will consist of three marks. Okay, we have to write 3 points in 1 point. We have to write 3 points in 1 point, or only one is enough. All right. Okay. Basically, okay, to be on the safe side, okay, every time that you answer the question for your SBL, you must have an element of, okay, answering what, why, and how, or what, how, and why. All right. So you cannot just say like the weaknesses is this. You need to actually explain, and then you need to actually, like, you know, give a reason for that particular weaknesses. And then after that, here it says you are supposed to be recommending how, all right, it should actually be addressed. So indirectly, you'll be actually getting that particular marks, okay? Which one is actually better for you to get like 1.2 marks or 1.1 mark? It would be great if you are able to get like 1.2 marks, isn't it? So how to do that? In order for you to have like 1 point, okay, having like 2 marks, you must make sure it's not just about the what that you are writing there. You must have the why and the how. All right. So the why and the how that you must have will be the one that should be in the context of the case. All right, here you ask that if, let's say, you missed that question number 1, okay, 1, 2 here, okay, that means this one. If we miss that question, it's actually asking for the 6 capitals. Can we answer it free flow? You are saying that you want to answer like how you actually analyze the performance of the company. So there's a tendency that you may get marks on the financial capital. All right. So why do I say that? Because if when it comes to the financial capital, all right, you will usually use your some kind of a ratio analysis for you to analyze that particular financial capital. So you may get some marks there. All right. So to what extent that particular free flow is actually helping you if you are able to have your points that are related to any of those particular capital, perhaps you can get some marks there. But I can't guarantee that you will get a good marks there. But at least you get some marks rather than not getting any marks at all. Yes. You're talking about change of ownership, yeah. So you may want to find out what was the structure before this, all right? Definitely it's high tendency that you may have it as a private company, all right? How do you demonstrate skepticism skills? Okay, basically I will actually go through this particular skepticism skill in detail in your day 4, all right? Okay, be patient, I'll be there. Basically, skepticism skill is actually you are not going to actually take things on face value. All right, you may want to actually probe further, looking into it. Excuse me. I think I've been talking the whole day today, so I'm talking again to all of you again tonight. All right. So if you are writing as part of director, what would be the role? Okay. Always remember that, okay, in the question, you will always be given the role, all right? So sometimes, okay, what is important that, especially when you are a junior staff, you may be writing on behalf of your CFO. So you CFO will actually just instruct you to help him, okay, to do certain reports, but eventually he will not be doing it, you will be doing it, and you assume that, okay, the way that you're going to write is how that particular CFO would actually write to the board of directors, okay. So quite a number of you asked me to demonstrate how a sentence is showing skepticism skill. All right. So basically, first you may want to accept it at okay, you want to write it at a face value. Okay, it is found that this particular company has got an internal control system that enables them to do what. However, okay, there are some lacking in this particular internal control systems in such that it is like this. Okay, only if that you are able to, they are able to actually improve. So basically, that's how actually you are supposed to be demonstrating your skepticism skills. All right. I'm not quite. I don't quite understand what you mean here. Is your name or like director of the office? Can you get back to me on this? All right. Oh, by all means. All right. You are asking me, can you mention evidence from the case? Do we need to rephrase the sentence from the case? Yes, you need to. All right. When answering or can just directly copy. No copying entire sentence from the case. You will not get any marks for that. All right. So you need to actually rephrase it in the context of how you actually understand what that particular sentence means. Okay. Okay, how to apply the six capitals in the case? Okay, the six capitals in the case, okay, how you're going to apply it is that, okay, instead of analyzing the performance of the company, like having the heading of profitability, liquidity, all right, gearing, things like that. So your heading to actually analyze that particular, to evaluate that particular overall performance is using the heading of your six capital just now, like financial, manufactured, natural resources. Okay, so these are the elements that you will be looking at from the exhibits, and you are going to analyze it based on that particular heading. I hope that's clear. So here you are saying that skepticism is, so does that mean that you are not believing everything we are told? Yes, that's what skepticism is. Specimen question, is it enough for SBL practice? Okay, it depends on how prepared you are. Okay, if let's say you have access to like BPP or Kaplan, perhaps it's good to actually practice more. But I would suggest that in the context of SBL, practicing practicing only is not enough. All right. What you need to have is that, okay, what you need to do is to read a lot on business news. Okay, that is very crucial actually, because when you read a lot on business news, it gives you lots of idea on how you are able to address your SBL question. It plays a big role there. All right. Oh, okay, thank you very much. Okay, yes, I'm drinking a lot of water now. No worries. For question 1A, would we get marks if we use different model or maybe just answer without any model? Yes, you can still get marks. All right. Okay. the tips here is that, okay, let's say you can't remember at all about your Potter's 5 forces. Here they're talking about industry and market, right? They are competing in. So when you're talking about industry, okay, you may want to look into the competitors in that particular industry. Where do they stand in that particular industry? All right. Are they the leader in that particular industry? Okay, you may want to analyze that. All right. So basically, you may also want to look who are other competitors that they have. Okay, you may want to look into the price. Okay, the kind of product that they are selling. Okay, are people substituting the products with, okay, competitors' products? So if you are able to showcase this, okay, indirectly, okay, you are able to answer it without actually depending on the model. Okay, you can. And another thing is that, okay, sometimes, okay, the drawbacks of using the model is, okay, you have a lot of points that you want to talk about, okay, in terms of the industry and the market that they are competing in. However, the points that you found in that particular exhibits are not able to be categorized into any of those particular 5 factors. You can't put it in under the threat of new entrants. You can put actually it in under the threat of substitute. Okay, and then basically you can put it under any of those particular 5 factors. So that point is actually relevant in actually analyzing the industry and market that they are competing in. So by all means, okay, just put it in. Not necessarily that, okay, it has to be like strictly following that Potter's 5 forces. You don't spell out that you are using Potter's 5 forces model to do that, right? Remember, your Potter's 5 forces model is just for you to help you structure your answer. If you have any additional points that you want to put in, you may put that in, all right? I hope that's clear. Okay, if you may find, remember Potter's 5 forces model is not the only model that you are able to use to analyze the industry and market, right? If you read other strategic management books, you will find many other models that you are able to use to actually analyze the industry and market. By all means, if you're familiar with it, use it. Okay. There's so many business news. Again, I would actually recommend that you download. Okay, it's a free app by ACCA. Okay, for the business news. All right, under accounting and business. Hold on, let me see. Okay. Okay, you have international accounting and business. You can actually type that down. All right, you can actually download it from, it's either Apple Store or Google Play Store. All right, so it's free from ACCA. You have accounting and business. Just type there ACCA accounting and business. You'll see a lot of these particular articles, the magazines there. These are free. All right. And again, podcast is actually important. Just Google, okay? Just type in like podcast for leadership, podcast for culture, podcast for whatever syllabus area that you have learned, okay? Perhaps that actually could actually help you as well, all right? And gives you a lot of idea. And once you have a lot of idea, you will be able to write a better sentence, and then you will be able to give more points, all right? So that's where you'll be able to actually, you know, target for 1.2 marks, or maybe you may have like 1 point or 3 marks, right? If actually the examiner are fascinated with your answer, you'll get a lot of marks for that. Sure, no worries. Okay. Okay. Why do you think that I did not actually put anything down here under C? I don't have any like things that I scribble down here. Why do you think that I'm not doing that? What was the topic area that we covered yesterday? It was like optimizing strategic decisions. And then we are talking about effectively leadership. And this is actually the area that I will cover after this. All right. So how do I know that? Remember here they're talking about what? Identifying the main opportunities presented by big data analytics. And basically this big data analytics, okay, was not actually covered yesterday. So I will not be covering it. I'll be going back to this particular question after we have already covered that. Right? What do we have here? What do we have here? What do you think will be the syllabus area? Why I chose specimen number 1 is that there are quite a number of actually questions, okay, are covering what we have covered yesterday. That's the reason why. All right. So if you notice that you have noted from information you have gathered from the DCS that there's an increasing carbon footprint. So if you're looking into carbon footprint, you know that this is something related to the environment, okay? Which it estimates in total, but failing to control adequately. That means, all right, the impact on environment is kind of increasing. So they are not able to actually control it. So what happened here is that as part of of the consultancy report that you are considering recommending to DCS, right, that it commissions a specialist environment and sustainability consultancy company to assess these issues at DCS company. So you are trying to tell them, hey, please hire this particular specialist environment sustainability consultancy, all right, to assess your increasing carbon footprint issue in your organization. So basically, this is what you are trying to actually put inside this particular report. All right. So here your task is you are asked to draft a concise section of the consultancy report, basically a brief section which construct the case. What does this particular construct the case? That means you have to provide some justification on the importance for commissioning an environmental and sustainability audit of DCS from 2 perspectives, all right? From the financial perspective, okay, and from the environmental perspective. So once you are able to provide justification on the importance for commissioning them, okay, why you need to actually commission them from these 2 perspectives, the next thing that you must have inside your answer is to suggest ways how these consultants can help DCS managers to become more sustainable in the management of carbon footprint. That means, okay, how these particular consultants can actually help these managers to make sure that, okay, in managing their carbon footprint, they are able to continuously do that, okay, and then making sure that the carbon footprint no longer increase and are able to be controlled by DCS. Okay, so you actually come up with the ways. So the the syllabus area that they are testing here is actually still effective leadership. Okay, you are actually focusing on the sustainability and related to social and environmental audit. All right. So the professional skills that you are trying to demonstrate here will be commercial acumen in identifying how DCS company could benefit from the findings of the audit. So commercial acumen is you are to demonstrate awareness, use your judgment, and show insight. That means in this particular case, you need to be able to show, okay, how this particular social, this particular audit, all right, environmental and sustainability audit, okay, is actually important for the business, all right. So you need to relate it, okay, how important is it for DCS to be able to actually manage this particular carbon footprint, all right. So for the business, for DCS, why is it crucial? So you need to be able to actually demonstrate your awareness. Why? Okay, carbon footprint is very important for an organization. So in this context, it's for DCS. So if you are able to show that in your answer, then you are indirectly demonstrating your awareness, using your judgment, and show your insight. So whatever answer that you give here, basically, all right, if you still remember what happened previously in the previous question, if you notice this, since it became a public limited company, so you must make sure that how important it is, all right, for you to actually demonstrate in your answer, okay, the importance of actually managing the carbon footprint for DCS in the context of them now are the public listed company. Okay, why is it so important now compared to before? So can you see or not the relevance or the connections of the requirements that you have from the first part, the second part, and reaching to this particular part D? Okay, so always bear in mind whatever answers that you give earlier on, it has to be in line with whatever answers that you are going to give later. Make sure there's coherence, all right? They are related, and if you are making any relevant business assumptions, make sure the assumptions that you make doesn't contradict with the answers that you give previously. Okay, if let's say you are now answering the last question, so you need to make sure that it is in line with whatever answers that you have given earlier. All right, so that is very crucial in SBL actually. So not much marks here, it's only 5. So you may want to actually like have construct the case here in the context of from both perspective. You have one from financial perspective, and then you have one from environmental perspective, and then basically you are suggesting ways how they could assist. So basically you have like particular 2.5. You can come up with 2 points with all these elements together, 2.5, 2.5. You can actually get 5 marks. All right. So why is this not being annotated? Because these are the syllabus areas that we will be covering. We will be covering later. All right. Okay. So basically, if you are able to show that particular relevance, all right, especially in the previous questions just now, some of you asked whether you are able to get actually full marks here. If you are able to actually demonstrate this particular commercial acumen, all right, in the context of answering both of this, because you know you are able to demonstrate how important it is for DCS now as a public limited company, and then compared to before when they were actually just a private company, all right, you will be able to get that particular full marks for your professional skills. Okay, if you notice that question 1 alone, all right, question 1 alone, you have A, you have B, you have C, excuse me, all right, and then you have part D here, and which actually carries a total marks of 60. All right, question 1 alone carries the mark of 60, but don't be afraid to actually, you know, afraid of this particular 60 marks. If you notice that all these particular questions are actually broken down into small pieces, so small marks, and then in terms of the number of marks that are actually manageable, all right? So just put your 60 marks aside. Some people are, when they look at this particular 60 marks, they start to panic. So don't be, all right? It doesn't harm you actually, all right? So because why? They are all broken down into small pieces and into small manageable marks. All right, this is the third question. Do you have any question after this? No, because specimen number 1, okay, only have 3 questions. The most question actually comes from number 1, okay. The rest actually from the remaining balance of another 40 marks is actually from question number 2 and question number 3. Okay, what do I have here under question number 3? You have highlighted from your interview with Java Prior and from your notes, okay, from the middle management focus group meeting, that there are some key stakeholders management and engagement issues at DCS company. You are now preparing working notes with relevant visual aids, okay, which will form a key part of your presentation of the overall consultancy report. So what is required in this particular question is that, okay, you are asked to use appropriate stakeholder analysis to what? To evaluate how the relative power and interest of the following 3 stakeholder groups, okay, and the strategies with that for engaging with them should have changed after DCS company became a public limited company. So why do I circle this? Evaluate, you can go back to the question verb that I've already provided you with just now. All right, here. But why do I circle this? Why is it so significant that I must understand this one? Okay, remember this particular question, and then if you look at this particular syllabus area, okay, before we move into understanding how to answer the question, when you look at this particular syllabus area, it's actually under effective leadership. Okay, cascade down into stakeholders, and then under stakeholders, you have your stakeholder analysis. So using this particular stakeholder analysis, you're supposed to be evaluating the relative power and interest. This is one element, okay, one section of the following three stakeholder groups. These three: shareholders, employees, and lenders. All right. So you're supposed to be evaluating this, okay, relative power and interest of these particular three stakeholders, and strategies for engaging with them should have changed after DCS company became a public limited company. All right. So what was, when they say evaluate the power and interest and strategies for engaging with them should have changed after DCS company became a public limited company, automatically this tells you what? They were not public limited company before this. All right. So before you are able to say how these strategies or the relative power and interest and strategies for engaging with them should have changed, you need to know what happened before and then what actually happened after in the context of this particular composition of your stakeholders, employees, and lenders. Who were shareholders before this? And who are actually the category of shareholders now? How was actually the relative power before and the strategies before, and how would it actually change now? All right. So you are supposed to be actually evaluating this particular three shareholders. All right. So as you actually explain it, you need to actually explain it in the context of DCS. 9 marks, 9 divided by 3 types of stakeholders. That means what? Roughly will carry about 3 marks. Okay. So as long as you fulfill this particular requirement before and after for each of this, and the strategies for engaging with them actually change, you will be able to actually get 3 marks. All right. So professional skills that are actually being tested here are actually your analytical skills for assessing the power and interest, how to engage with these stakeholders before and after the flotation. You see, they did mention before and after the flotation. Even if, let's say, you don't have this. Okay, let's say, I'm striking through this. This was not actually mentioned. Okay. Automatically, when you look at this particular keywords here, should have changed after they become this. That means they must be before and after. Okay. Even if, let's say, these are not actually given. So any questions so far before I move on to what we are going to have today? All right. Okay, some of you guys mentioned that, okay, before the flotation, some have been performed in an informal way, and then after flotation, perhaps it will be more formal. Okay, you need to spell out clearly in the context of the case. All right, it cannot be a general answer. Okay, whatever it is, you have to tie it back to DCS. Who are the shareholders of DCS before, and who are the shareholders of DCS after? What are their relative power and interest? And what was the strategies before and what are the relative power and interest and strategies now, right? So basically you need to write it down in the context of the case. All right. Since we're done with this, okay, I'll be coming back to this, okay, going through whatever that we have not gone through, and then hope to actually, like, you know, we go after we have done with all the syllabus areas, I will actually be going through with you the exhibits together with you, all right, and then we try to relate it back to this particular question, all right. Okay, what we will be doing is actually going back to this is our day 2. So since we have actually gone through the specimen 1, the topical, okay, so let us actually look through, okay, tomorrow the day 3, evaluating and enabling strategic change, implementing the strategic change, then I'll be going back to your specimen number 1, all right, we have done that, okay. Give me a minute, all right, before I start this. All right. Okay, let's continue with the syllabus of a D, E, F, G, and H. All right. So this is what you have actually under the syllabus of D, E, F, G, and H. Under your risks, these are the areas that you have actually covered. Okay, you have this identification of assessment, things like that. I think, okay, you can actually read this. Okay, basically under E, this is what you will be covering, technology and data analytics. So these are the composition of what, okay, we will be covering under technology and data analytics. And under F, you'll be covering, all right, organizational control and audit. So these are basically the elements that you have inside. And then under G, here you have finance in planning and decision making. So basically this is what you will be actually having, okay, under that particular finance in planning and decision making. And then under this syllabus H, all right, so you'll have innovation, performance, excellence, and change management. Okay, so basically you'll find that, okay, it's all enabling success, okay, looking into organizing, disruptive technologies, talent management, performance excellence. So this will be covered under your syllabus area H. But for the purpose of this particular revision, all right, it will be an integrated approach, right? Why do I say it is an integrated approach? Because all this particular syllabus area like D, E, F, G, H, that like what we have covered yesterday, right? We will actually look into this particular syllabus area into 3 main areas, right? You have assessing and managing risks and ethical issues, evaluating and enabling strategic change, implementing strategic change. So assessing and managing risks and ethical issues. Okay, these are the three areas that we will actually be looking at tonight. All right. Assessing and managing risks, internal control systems, applying ethical principles. Okay, why do you think that, okay, these particular three areas are actually put together? What's the connection between this particular assessing and managing risk? And then suddenly you see internal control system, and then after that you see like, okay, applying ethical principles. Why do you think that they are actually put together? Okay, remember, okay, when you're talking about assessing and managing risk, all right, okay, so in order for you to actually minimize certain type of risk, all right, or you may need actually a system that helps you to actually manage this particular risk as well. And one of those particular systems that can help you to address certain type of risk is actually internal control system. All right. And at the same time as well, by applying ethical principles, actually, all right, you will be able to actually address or manage certain type of risk. And that's why you see that when it comes to ethics, it is actually related to reputation risk. All right. So basically, in order for you to make sure that people don't do any unethical thing in an organization, you need internal control system so that people will comply to the rules and regulation, the process and the procedures. So when they comply, okay, they are considered as doing an ethical thing. So if they are ethical, basically you are able to actually reduce the risk, and then once you reduce that particular risk, company can actually perform better. Okay. Why do you think that, okay, what's the relationship actually between organized strategy and risk management? Okay, in the context of strategy, strategy talks about the future, okay? Because why I say future, strategy is a long-term direction, is somewhere ahead, somewhere like 5, 10 years, 20 years ahead, and you wouldn't know what may happen in the future. So the future is actually full of uncertainty, and if you are able to quantify it, then it becomes your risk. Okay. So under this particular assessing and managing risk, okay, under this organizational risk and risk management, it can be divided into stakeholder responses to risk, all right, and then you'll have like embedding risk in culture and values, all right. So how does this thing take place? What does it mean by stakeholder responses to risk? Under this particular organizational risk, organizational strategy and risk management, they are actually focusing on stakeholder responses to risk, and they are also focusing on embedding risk in culture and values. So if you notice what I've actually scribbled here, all right, stakeholder responses to risk actually, okay, can have influence on the company's organizational strategy. Why do I say that? because some stakeholders, okay, may have high tolerance, okay, in terms of the risk, in facing the risk. They can be risk taker. Okay, if they have high tolerance, they're bound to be a risk taker. But some may not, all right? So they are the risk averse kind of stakeholders. And let's say the stakeholders that you have, for example, give it like, you know, your shareholders. If your shareholder is actually a risk averse person, and then your CEO, okay, is actually someone who is actually a risk taker. So shareholders actually has already appointed your board of directors to actually work on his behalf and making sure that this particular board of directors, okay, are actually, okay, satisfying the needs of the shareholders. They are risk averse, so they wouldn't want to go for any kind of strategy that can actually harm the shareholders' value. But you have this particular CEO who are actually having high risk tolerance. Okay, so if he is actually having higher risk tolerance, he tend to actually go for strategies that are risky. Okay, this may create, all right, friction between this particular board of directors and stakeholder. So that's why, okay, they need to come into terms on the level of risk that both parties are willing to tolerate, right? So that actually gives rise to risk appetite, all right? So when it comes to embedding risk, okay, in culture and values, okay, you must actually make sure that, okay, if you have a strategy, you know that that particular strategy is a long-term, your long-term direction, and definitely there is actually risk, uncertainty or risk associated to it. Okay, in order for you to make sure that you are able to execute that particular strategy, you need to identify what are the kind of risks that you may face in pursuing into that particular strategy. So if you are able to align, okay, your strategy with your operational activities, okay, you will be able to actually achieve your objective. All right. And another thing is that, okay, when it comes to embedding risk in the culture and values, okay, basically what we are trying to say here is that, okay, every time that you think of something, you want to make decision, okay, in your organization, you must, okay, not just look into the outcome, all right, that you want, the profit that you want. You should also look into the possible risk that you may face, okay, that may actually stops you from getting that particular outcome as well. So what will be the potential risk? Okay, the potential dispersion from your original plan. So this is something that you have to have in mind every time that you actually make your decisions. So basically, most of you, I would actually, you know, salute all of you because you are willing to take the risk to do your ACCA. So you are already at this particular level doing your SBL, and there's a risk attached to this particular SBL as well. So I hope that once you know that there's a high risk of failing SBL, you will be taking your precautionary measure to make sure that, all right, you will do necessary thing to pass. All right. So the extra effort that you have to put in, the extra revision that you have to put in, extra practice, okay, extra reading of newspapers, okay, or your business news, okay, by listening to your podcast. So basically, this is how you should actually be addressing that particular risk. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to minimize the risk of failing. So when you say that you're embedding risk in your process, your procedures, your values, and your cultures, okay, having a risk management process, okay, taking place in an organization is actually considered as embedding risk. Okay, so in the risk management process, you will have people who are responsible, okay, in this particular risk management process. So basically, under this risk management process is under the responsibilities of risk committee, okay, which are actually being set up by the board. And then you may also have risk manager, that will be your line manager that will be performing the work on behalf of the risk committee. Okay, if you are actually having a separate function between them. But basically, the main role of risk management process, okay, lies, okay, in the board, because board is actually accountable for that. Okay. And then in this particular risk management process, you may want to start with risk appetite. All right. So basically, risk appetite is how you are actually preparing, okay, hold on. Okay, sorry. Okay, when it comes to risk appetite, all right. So risk appetite is basically the risk that you are prepared to bear. And then when it comes to risk preference, we are talking about whether you are you are risk averse or you are a risk taker. And when it comes to risk capacity, okay, remember just now, risk appetite is the risk that you are prepared to bear, but risk capacity is the risk that you are able to bear. All right. So that's the difference between appetite and capacity. You prepare to actually, lose 100,000, but basically the capacity is that you are not able to actually afford to lose that particular 100,000. Even losing 50,000, you already suffer. All right. So basically, the capacity is you are able to bear. Remember this one. Okay, appetite is prepared to bear. All right. Preference is your averse, okay, or risk taker or risk seeker. So when I say the risk, okay, it's the nature and strength of that particular risk. All right. So identifying the risk, you need to know, okay, what are the risk factors. You may want to categorize those particular risks, all right, into strategic versus operational. Okay, you have the risk categories, and then you may also have risk register. Okay, what normally you will have inside your risk register? What do you think that you might have inside your risk register? All right. So basically what you have inside your risk register is, okay, what you have already assessed your risk, all right? Okay, you and under identifying risk, once you have identified what are the kind of risks that you have, all right, you will actually record it inside your risk register, okay? Why is it so important? Because remember, under this particular, the function of this particular risk committee is to actually monitor the risk that may affect the organization. All right. So that's where you have to be actually very, very careful. So inside your risk register, once you have identified your risk, all right, you may actually look into the possible impact of that particular risk, okay, if it were to take place, okay, for example, like the severity, okay, the frequency that it might happen. So basically this is actually what you would actually have inside your risk register as well, okay. And then the next thing that you'll do is you assess your risk, okay. You'll be using techniques, okay, to quantify the risk that you have, okay, and what would actually happen if they materialize. So all this particular information should actually be inside your risk register, just like how you record your movement of your assets inside your asset register. Similarly, that's what you should actually be doing for the risk as well. You have identified those particular risks, okay, you have categorized it, all right, once you have already assessed it, okay, so you might have, okay, to put inside, okay, the likelihood and the impact, okay, inside your risk register pertaining to the risk that you have already identified just now. And then the next thing that you may actually, okay, look into how you'll be responding to those risks if the risk were to materialize. And another thing that you may want to have inside there as well will be who will be responsible for that particular risk. Okay, so in responding to the risk, you have like mechanism like TARA, ALAPS, and diversification. So TARA is like some risks you can actually reduce it, some you can actually avoid, some you can actually accept, some you can actually transfer, and some risks you are trying your best to actually put it as low as, okay, make it as low as reasonably practical, all right. And then there are certain risks which you can actually diversify to actually minimize the chances of the risk to actually take place. Okay, if you still remember your portfolio analysis in your F9, if I'm not mistaken, where you do your diversification, all right, and then at the same time, okay, what I meant by diversification is like you don't put all the eggs in one basket. That means when you do your investment, you try your best to actually put your investment at several places so that you can actually spread out your risk, right? And another process that you will have here will be monitoring. You will review and adapt the process, okay, and then you will look into how well that you have done in the overall risk management process. That means, have you actually, okay, identified the risk factors for the risk? What are actually risk factors? Factors that could impact the successful implementation of your strategy or achievement of your organization. So it can be anything, right? anything that can impede the success of your strategy, and something that actually can stop you from achieving your objective. So basically those are the risk factors. Right, it can be external environment, can be risk factors. Change in the leadership can also be risk factors. All right, and then the nature of the risk itself can also be risk factors. For example, some risks are related, some risks are not related, some are you can actually look at some are risks are correlated. So some are positively correlated, some are negatively correlated. That means one risk goes up if one risk takes place, and another risk will actually takes place increase, and if another one can actually reduce. So basically you have either negative or positive correlation between your risk. So these are basically factors that can actually risk, or any kind of event that actually sparks the dispersion of your outcome, can actually be risk factors. I've been talking too much today, I guess. All right. So far up to here, do you have like, sorry. Okay. Do you have like any question? Okay. So some of you actually are asking what can actually, under what circumstances that you are actually able to use a lab. Any type of risk that if you think that it will materialize, and if you are not able to actually, use the Tara, you'll be able, but those particular risks are the risks that you are able to actually reduce it, to the level that as low as practicable, so you can actually use a lab. All right, so any kind of risk. So Tara is just one kind of model, and a lab is just one kind of model. But if you ask me, a lab is the easiest model for you to actually use to respond to your risk, as long as you are able to respond in such that whatever that you undertake are able to actually reduce that particular risk to the lowest as possible, as practicable. So that's where you are actually applying your lab. All right. And if you're talking about, cost benefit analysis, so basically that is actually an approach that can actually be referred to as an lab as well, because that's an approach for you to try to actually minimize your costs and try to actually maximize the benefit. All right. So cost benefit analysis can be an example for your lab. All right. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Okay, this is basically the responsibility of risk committee. All right, what they do is, okay, they will set risk policy. So always remember, okay, the risk policy that are being set up by the risk committee will depend on the organization's risk appetite. All right, so from there, okay, they will set the risk policy. And if let's say they don't have a separate function, okay, don't have a separate risk management function, so basically, okay, the risk committee is actually responsible to assess the risk. And another task that they will have will be, okay, to review internal audit work. Some students ask me, what do you mean? Isn't this the job of the audit committee? All right, bear in mind, okay, when it comes to looking into the internal control compliance to the reviewing the compliances in terms of the internal control system, right? That's where, okay, that is the part where the audit committee will look at it. But when it comes to risk, we are looking into the areas of internal audit that are related to risk areas. All right. So basically, that's what the risk committee is actually focusing on. All right. So they may review, okay, once in a while, review the risk register, because why they need to review it, okay, because sometimes, okay, risk, okay, evolves, so they need to see whether that particular risk register do take into consideration the evolution. All right, if let's say there are some risks that has materialized, and then there are ways to mitigate that, and then so they would actually want to look into who are responsible and what they have done to actually try to minimize that particular risk as it materializes. So these are the kind of things that, okay, risk committee will actually look at when they review the risk register. And basically, okay, once they have got this particular information, they will be able to actually advise the board on the strategic directions, okay, according to the level of risk that they are willing to tolerate. All right. So indirectly, all right, risk committees is to ensure that the system to assess and manage risk exists in an organization. Okay, let me just try to make it bigger. Okay, before I forget, all right, pertaining to this this particular risk committee, okay, if let's say, okay, not all companies will have a risk committee, right? So that means a big company with money will have, okay, all the committees under the boards, all right? So if let's say they can't afford to have a separate risk committee, so audit committee usually will be the committee that take this responsibility with the help of the risk manager. All right. So if they don't have a separate risk committee, it means that the audit committee must take the responsibility to do to perform the function of a risk management. Okay, risk management. So with the help of risk manager. All right. Because if you have like a separate committee, all right, you may have to actually have many people in it. So it's kind of costly. because as they hold a different portfolios, right, you need, organization need to actually pay them. Oh dear. I'm trying to enlarge this actually. So someone was asking about risk maps. Okay, basically risk map is trying to actually look into, okay, this is actually, hold on. The purpose of why you are mapping your risk is actually, this is actually a process of assessing risk. All right, you want to see, okay, the severity of that particular risk. So that's the reason why you map this particular risk. Okay, some people use heat map, right? And heat map is basically, okay, having your risk tolerance as a boundary, and then you'll look into the impact, that is the severity of that particular risk if it were to materialize, and then the likelihood or the frequency of that particular risk to take place. So once you are looking into this, okay, basically you will know, okay, which type of risk that you will actually prioritize and how you are going to actually treat different type of risk. So that's actually the purpose of mapping it out. All right, at least you know which particular risk that you should focus on, your priority, to make sure that if, okay, it materialized, you know how to address it. Okay, so that's the reason why people actually use heat map. So not necessarily that everyone will be using it, but it's good to have this particular risk map. All right, so one of the example of the risk map is actually heat map. And other means to actually, all right, to basically look into analyze your risk is your break-even analysis. This can also be an example, all right, that which you can actually use to look into the in assessing those particular risks as well. All right. So risk can be categorized into strategic and operational. So under strategic, okay, you have business and non-business. So anything that's related to business like product, environmental, stakeholder, investment will fall under your business risk, right? And then the non-business will be financial and event. But both of these are actually strategic risks. But remember, even though they are being categorized into this strategic and operational, all right, your operational risk, if it were to materialize and you do not actually bother, okay, this particular risk can actually becomes your financial risk. Okay, it can evolve, all right, and once it's a financial risk, if you don't actually, you know, try to address it, it can become a strategic risk. All right, so you need to have in mind that risk actually evolves. Sometimes it's getting more and more, sometimes it changes from one particular category to another category. All right, so those are the kind of risks. Okay, that means the behavior of this particular risk need to also be put inside your risk register. All right. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Okay, the next part under your internal, under your assessing and managing risk and ethical issues will be your internal control system. All right. And then under your internal control system, okay, we will be looking into the internal control, and we will also be looking into monitoring. What's the relationship between internal control and monitoring? What do you think? Okay, put this in mind. All right. If you are looking into internal control system, okay, basically you are looking into compliance, right? Compliance to what? Compliance to rules and regulations and compliance to control procedures. All right. Basically, you are complying to your processes and your procedures that you already have in place. So if let's say one process requires you to actually perform A, B, C, and D, so you must make sure that everyone who does that particular activities will have to go through A, B, C, and D. So you are looking into that particular compliance. Once you miss that particular, let's say any of your employees actually miss one of those, okay, it's considered as non-complying. So if the impact of non-complying, okay, is actually severe on the data that you are keeping, so indirectly that will affect, okay, if it's being analyzed, it will become information. So it will affect the kind of information that you are going to have. Okay, once it affects your information, remember information is actually being used by managers to make decisions. So the implication will be that, okay, the managers will not be able to make a sound decision because of why? Because of the data that you have are not accurate. So a simple example, all right, let's say if you're talking about sales and then you're supposed to be recording those particular sales, and they will always have a sales procedures. And then let's say if you don't follow those particular sales procedures, perhaps you miss out one of the documents, okay, of this particular sales as evidence for your sales, okay, you miss that particular document, okay, or maybe it's like you lose it. So there's high chances that that particular transaction will not be recorded. So what happens is that, okay, the sales that you're supposed to have is not recorded as part of your sales. So if let's say managers were to make decision based on that information that you give, okay, they might not be performing or having a correct decision. Why? Because there are some information that are actually missing. Okay, so that's the reason why, okay, you need a good internal control system, because basically it is an assurance. Look at the definition here. It says what? It is basically an assurance, okay, regarding the achievement of objectives, reporting, and compliance. So this particular definition is actually from COSO. So if you are to apply it in the context of an organization, so you need to make sure that the organization that you are looking at, okay, is actually having this particular system. Okay, this is a process affected by entity's board of directors, management, and other personnel designed to provide reasonable assurance, okay, regarding the achievement of objectives, reporting, and compliance. So what it meant here that everybody must follow rules and regulation. Everybody must actually follow the procedures. Whether you are board of directors or you are the management team or you are just an ordinary personnel, you are actually to, okay, you are abide to this particular internal control system. You have to follow the processes and the procedures that are in place. All right. If you follow means you comply. So if you comply, okay, chances of the company to actually have better information is higher. All right. What is actually the objectives of your internal control system? Whether you are referring to COSO or whether you are referring to the Turnbull, all right. Basically, okay, the objective of internal control system, okay, is actually to manage the risk. All right. Why? Because internal control system, okay, are in place is actually to manage and control the risk. All right. It's not actually a mechanism for you to eliminate risk. So you are just trying to put some control mechanism. This is why it is internal control system. All right. So another thing is that you want to ensure that, okay, operations are effective and efficient. And then you want to ensure that, okay, the internal and external reporting that you are having is actually a reliable reporting, right? So, and another thing is that you are helping the organization to actually comply with laws and regulation. So basically that's also the objective of internal control system. All right. And holistically is talking about what? Safeguarding the shareholders' investment and the company's assets, right? So this is actually, okay, what Turnbull and COSO is actually telling us on how these two are having actually similar objective. Okay, so basically these are the objectives that they have. All right, so just remember, objective is to manage risk, having effective and efficient operation, ensure reliability of internal and external reporting. All right, helping organization to comply with laws and regulations and safeguard the shareholders' investment and company's assets. And you also need to know as well, all right, the elements of internal control. So elements of internal control, okay, referring to COSO, you will have your control environment, all right, you have your risk assessment, and you have your control activities, you have information and communication, and then you have monitoring activities. Okay, what is it? Excuse me. Okay, what is control environment? So if you're talking about internal control system, if you want your internal control system to be able to achieve the objective of internal control system, basically you need all these particular elements inside there, right? So one of those elements that you have will be the control environment. So control environment is actually the tone of the organization. Okay, what it means is that it looks into how risk is actually being looked at and being addressed by people in the organization. Okay, so it covers the risk appetite, and they are also covering that the integrity and the ethical values. Okay, and the environment in which this particular organization is actually operating. So basically, okay, if the board are concerned about internal control system, all right, and then they do participate in ensuring that the company do have a good system, okay, so indirectly, okay, your company will be able to set this particular good internal control system. That means you have the support, okay, from your top management, okay, they are strongly, okay, supporting you, and they are actually willing to be with you to ensure that, okay, everybody in that particular organization, okay, follows rules and regulation, and making sure that, okay, high compliance is actually taking place in an organization. And your element of internal control system should also be looking into or addressing risks. That's why you have this particular risk assessment, right? I think we have covered risk just now. So basically that's part of your internal control system as well. So basically under this assessment, like we have discussed earlier on, okay, you may want to see into what are the risks that are manageable, all right, that can be controlled, and the risks that are uncontrollable. So you may also want to look into, okay, the risk assessment process. You must make sure that your risk assessment is actually dynamic. What it means by dynamic is that any change in terms of your internal and external environment, all right, that can actually affect your control system to be effective, all right, need to be addressed the soonest. So you need to continuously look at those particular risk assessment, all right, as and when, okay, there is an internal and external environment, okay, that actually affect your organization. That's where you need to actually revise and look at the risk assessment that you have actually performed in your organization. So it has to be done fast. If not, okay, it will affect your whole operation. And another one will be the control of activities. So control activities is basically policies and procedures that are established and implemented to help ensure that the risk response are effectively being carried out. All right. So COSO actually suggests, okay, a mix of controls, okay, where you will have like prevention, detection, okay, and then manual and automated controls to be in place, all right, so that you'll be able to actually ensure that you are able to respond to risk effectively. And the next part will be information and communication. All right. This is actually important, all right, because why? Relevant information should actually be identified, captured, and communicated, okay, in a form and time frame that enables people to carry out their responsibilities. So basically, information needs to be relevant, all right, and of a certain appropriate quality. That means when we talk about the quality of information, okay, you need to actually understand that only if you have a good quality of information that you will be able to make a good decision. All right, this one is very important. All right, you are able to identify, capture, and communicate this particular relevant information to whoever that needs this particular information. And the last part here is actually monitoring activities. So here you want to make sure that risk control process are continuously to be monitored and modified, okay, if it's necessary. All right. So it needs to actually undergo regular review, okay, and then definitely you may need like feedback and actions to be obtained, and then what are the kind of actions that has been taken to actually manage that particular risk from those who are responsible in managing that particular risk. Okay, so if you think that you need to actually uh, modify certain risk control processes, then if it's necessary, then you can actually do that. Okay. The next part is actually categories of control. These particular categories of control, okay, covers the basically, okay, based on the control pyramid, you have corporate manager. These are the examples of the categories of control. All right. For example, you have corporate management or business process and transaction control. You have administrative and accounting control. So these are the examples that I have here. I put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of your categories of control. All right. So when it comes to voluntary control, some controls you are actually voluntary. If you want to have it there, then it's up to you to have that particular control. But when it comes to mandated, that means it's compulsory. All right. And another part will be your control procedures. So what's the purpose of control procedures? Okay, basically for your categories of control, like your corporate management, administrative, accounting, all right, prevent, detect, correct, and direct controls, or financial and non-financial controls, voluntary and mandated controls, to function effectively, okay, it depends on the control procedures. So your control procedures comprise of segregation of duties, all right, authorization, physical control, information processing, and performance reviews. All right. And then another part of your control is actually control over financial reporting. So the purpose of this particular control over your financial reporting to ensure accuracy of your financial reporting information. So that's the reason why you have like control whereby you need a full documentation of the assets that you have actually purchased, all right, and then the liabilities that you have, the transactions. So it need to be backed up by documents, and you also need to have matching source documents and your accounting records. So whatever source documents that you have, let's say if you're talking about sales, invoiced, then you have receipts. So make sure those particular information inside those particular invoices are actually recorded, all right. So why you need to actually keep track of the movements of your documents? Because you want to make sure that whatever business transaction that takes place inside the organization, are all being recorded. And it is very important because this particular transaction, once it is recorded, it becomes a data, all right? And this particular data, once it is actually processed, becomes information, and those particular information which they are usually related to will be the financial reporting information, all right. So basically you're monitoring all kinds of information here, and you have several types of information, all right. You have strategic information, all right. You have managerial, you have your operational. And then certain types of informations that you have, some are external information, all right, some are financial information, and there you also have non-financial informations. So what I was talking about just now was that the level of information where you have this strategic information, tactical and operational information, all right. Whether it is strategic, whether it's tactical or operational information, the information that you have under these particular headings, you may have a category of like some are financial information, some are non-financial information as well. So why is it so crucial is that you need to know what kind of information that you should actually be providing to those at strategic level, those at tactical level, that is managerial level, and those that are at the operational level, all right. So usually the kind of information that you will actually feed to those under strategic will be coming both from internal and external sources, all right. And then those under tactical basically is internally generated, all right. And then same goes to your operational information. It comes from your internal sources and basically coming from your transactions. And the next part will be reviewing your internal control. All right. So internal control system, need to be reviewed as well. All right. Sometimes, certain control procedures, may not be relevant. If you have like new business activities or you have like new transactions. So sometimes certain types of activities, new activities that you have, may not be able to apply the existing internal control system that you have. So you may need to review and you may need to have okay, a revised internal control system, a new one. So this actually being performed by your audit committee, who will continuously be actually reviewing this, and then to perform, okay, looking into the this particular internal control system is actually the internal audit. Okay, the internal audit function actually will actually look into the internal control system of your organization performed by internal auditors. All right. Okay, the next part is actually applying ethical principles. Why it is actually important for you to apply ethical principles is that, all right, remember, ethics is always related to this particular crucial risk, okay, important risk, that is reputation risk. So you will definitely have to try your best to make sure that the image of your organization will not be tarnished by some unethical activities performed by your staff. All right, and not just by the staff or by the board, or can be also by the board, the top management. All right, so under applying these ethical principles, it will be divided into two. Okay, ethics is all about doing the right thing, and then doing the wrong thing. Right? So fraud is basically one of the obvious things that you are not supposed to be doing. All right? So why people actually commit fraud? Okay, if you look into the fraud triangle, basically people, okay, tend to actually commit fraud because of opportunities, sometimes because of pressure, okay, and sometimes because of rationalization. So that is basically your fraud triangle that explains why fraud actually happens. Okay. If you're talking about the fraud triangle, okay, in explaining why people actually commit fraud, okay, with your ACCA qualification, then definitely most of you will become an accountant or CFO or CEO in the future. Okay, so you will be actually managing the biggest resources of your organization, that is the money, right? So you have that particular opportunity. So you must always actually tell yourself that even if you have that particular opportunity, you must make sure that you do not mismanage that particular fund. One will be pressure. Sometimes people commit fraud, okay, because why? Because of pressure by the lifestyle, right? You want to have a bigger car, you can, people expect you to have a bigger car, but actually you can't afford it, okay? Some people say that because of, okay, because of the lifestyle, okay, you are put under pressure. So, and because of that particular pressure, okay, if you're not strong enough, right, you tend to actually commit fraud, okay? You may steal from the organization. And then rationalization basically, okay, Okay, why certain people actually commit fraud? Okay, some people actually steal from the organization that they work with because they are underpaid. So perhaps by stealing it, okay, they are trying to justify that, okay, because I'm underpaid, I deserve to have this particular cash. Okay, next will be responding to actually fraud risks. Okay, having a good internal control system can be a mechanism, okay, one way for you to respond to actually this particular fraud risk. And the main type of wrongdoings is actually bribery and corruption. Okay, this is actually, I would say, in most countries you'll find that this particular act widely being practiced. All right, and sometimes people practice it, they don't realize that is something that's not good. Because why? Because they see others doing it, so they thought that they can actually do the same thing. And then you have measures to combat bribery and corruption. So some of the measures that, okay, people use to actually combat this particular combat this particular bribery and corruption is by having anti-corruption procedures. All right. What are some of the examples of, okay, when you have this particular anti-corruption procedures, okay, you must make sure that, okay, whatever procedures that you have in place, okay, are able to actually curb your employees or your agents or your third parties or whoever that's actually, okay, acting on your behalf from committing that particular bribery. And one way is actually by having a code of conducts or the code of ethics that you have here. So this is basically, okay, a mechanism for you to actually combat the bribery and corruption. So far, any questions? No questions. Okay. Good listeners. I hope you don't doze off. All right. Okay. Especially those in Malaysia. We are here. Okay. The time now is actually 11:20 here at night. Okay. So this webinar will only be finished midnight at 12 here in Malaysia. All right. So hopefully you will stay awake. And I'm starting to lose my voice already. So hopefully it lasts until Friday. All right. And one way to actually apply ethical principles, okay, in your decision making is applying the Tucker's 5-question model. All right. If you notice that here, okay, previously you have Tucker's 5-question model. Okay, this is one of the mechanism, okay, for you to do the right thing, especially when you want to make your decisions. Okay, you want to make an ethical decisions. Okay, Tucker's 5-question model can actually help you to do that, but not necessarily that will be the only mechanism that you can use. All right. Okay, if you read further on strategic management books, all right, there are many other mechanism there to help you to make good decision, not just good, ethical decision making. All right. So Tuckers is one of those that can actually help you with that. So what are the questions? Basically, you are looking into, okay, profitability. Will the decisions, okay, contribute to the profitability of the business, right? So if yes, then you move on to the next one. Is that particular decision legal? Okay, whatever decision that you're trying to make or the choice you're trying to make, okay, is it legal? All right, under the laws. And the next thing is whether it's fair and equitable, okay, to the stakeholders. And when it comes to this particular right, okay, just now you're talking about legal. Now you're talking about right here. So you under the right, we are looking into the moral aspect, whether this particular decision is actually morally right or not. All right. Okay, whether it's actually accepted by the societies. And the last one will be sustainable and environmentally sound. So you want to look into whether the decision that you are trying to make, okay, enable you to have, okay, ensure the sustainability of the environment. And if environment is not involved, then you can actually look into the economic sustainability, whether the company or the organization that, okay, you are making decision on their behalf are able to actually still be there in the future. All right, so this is where we are talking about the economic sustainability. All right, so for this particular part, evaluating and enabling strategic change, I will cover this tomorrow. Okay, what is important is that, okay, I am going back to that particular specimen, all right, that we have just now. All right, this one. Okay. Which of this, okay, basically we have already, like, you know, when we look at this, okay, do you think that this is the area that we have covered tonight? Look here, what this particular question requirement asks for is basically related to, oh dear, is basically related to big data, and definitely we are not covering big data here. But remember, all right, even if you have big data, there's always risk there as well. All right, so sometimes it can be actually combined with this. So what about, okay, these are the ones that we have not actually answered. So question 1, we are done with the yesterday. So we have not covered this. And then what about this part here? Okay. So question number 2, in the October board report, the executive directors refer to a number of factors. All right. This is actually October report. Executive directors, okay, refer to number of factors that are actually affecting DCS. All right. Okay, and there is a need to choose one of two alternative strategic options. All right. So basically, these are the, okay, the head story for this particular requirement. So what you are supposed to be doing is you are supposed to draft a section of this particular report. Okay, draft a section. It's not a full report, it's only a section, all right? And you are supposed to be identifying, all right? So what is this? This is basically your question verb. All right, this is the first question verb. You are supposed to identify. What's the next question verb? The next question verb is actually for you to briefly discussed. Okay, you are supposed to be identifying, all right, identify, and after that you're supposed to be briefly discussing. So what is it that you're supposed to be discussing here? All right, so you're supposed to be discussing remember is sorry it's oh dear, all right, forget about it. Okay, you're supposed to be discussing three main risks which DCX company currently faces and plot them on a heat map. Okay, some of you actually did ask about the heat map, all right? So this is what you're supposed to be doing, all right? So there are three main risks which DCS currently is actually faces, right? So you are supposed to be plotting them. So when he says plots, that means this is one of the tasks that you're supposed to be doing, all right? How many tasks that you have? You're supposed to be, okay, this is the action, right? This is a task. You're supposed to be what? Drafting a section of a report, and then you are supposed to be plotting what? Okay, what is it that you must have inside the report? Identify and briefly discuss the risks. The next thing that you need to do is to plot them on a heat map. All right. After that, you are supposed to be recommending appropriate strategies to manage those risks. All right. Using an appropriate risk management framework. So basically, what are you going to have there? What are you supposed to be doing there? So how many tasks, how many activities that you need to do, how many actions that you have to actually have here. So you have like one here, all right, identify, and then you discuss three main risks. Okay, have a look at inside the case. Okay, what is actually that particular three main risks? Then once you are done with this, okay, after you have identified and discussed, the next thing that you need to do is, the third thing that you need to do here is to plot them on a heat map, right? And then after that, the fourth thing that you're supposed to do is, once you have already plotted them on a heat map, you are supposed to be recommending appropriate strategies to manage those risks, all right? To manage those risks using an appropriate risk management framework, all right? So what's the risk management framework that you can actually use? So you may consider of FARA, all right? So this particular syllabus area that you have inside here, the technical knowledge, is actually what we are covering tonight. All right, it is actually assessing and issues. So we can narrow it down to actually risk, risk identification, right? Because you're supposed to be identifying them. So what else that you may need to do there? All right. Okay, after your risk identification, what are the areas that you're supposed to be covering? So when you plot them, you are actually what doing? Risk assessment, and basically what you have after that is, okay, how you actually respond to this. All right, so basically this is the syllabus areas that you're looking at when you are answering this particular question. All right, so 4 things here: identify, briefly discussed, plotting, and then basically when you recommend the appropriate strategies for this particular 3 risks. All right, after you plot this 3 and you recommend, so you get 6 marks. So each of these particular risks, all right, carries 2 marks. All right, identify and briefly discuss, you get 1 mark. When you plot them, and then after that you are recommending strategies to manage that particular risk using whatever framework that you have here. All right, so you will actually get another mark. Not much marks, but the task is actually a lot of things to do here. Okay, but when it comes to the possible, okay, risk management framework that you are able to use to manage those risks, you may think of FARA, all right, to help you actually answer this particular question. And then the skills that are actually being tested here is actually, all right, your commercial acumen skills. All right, you're supposed to be demonstrating your awareness. Okay, use your judgment and then show your insights. Okay, what about B? What do you think? All right. You are now reviewing a spreadsheet prepared by your colleague Freddie Lithium, which evaluates the strategic choices facing DCS company in the next 3 years to ensure its validity in supporting your recommendation in the consultancy report. So here you are supposed to be referring to the spreadsheet. Okay, you are supposed to be evaluating, okay, the contents in the spreadsheet, including any assumptions made by the DCS. All right. And then, okay, basically, you may need to look at what is actually in the spreadsheet. All right. So you may want to look into your exhibits and what they are. So what I can say here is that, okay, for this particular question, even though that, okay, you may need to do some evaluation, right? So in actually evaluating these particular choices, all right, let me just put here, hold on. Okay, you may need, okay, the syllabus area that that we will be actually covering tomorrow. Why? Because even if like you are looking into optimizing the strategic decisions, you need to have, okay, you need to have some background on your financial analysis, which should be evaluating and, okay, enabling strategic change that I will actually cover with you tomorrow. All right. So basically B, we will look into this. Okay, what else that we actually have tonight? So basically, this is another verb. Okay, this is actually question 3. All right. So you're supposed to be, okay, criticizing, okay, CEOs and HR directors' ethical and professional behavior. All right. So this one is actually under our ethics. All right. So you may want to refer to the Code of Ethics and Professional Behavior. Okay, relating to the this is important because you are only going to actually criticize their ethical and professional behavior only on the areas that concerns the design, conduct, and reporting of the staff satisfaction survey. So you may need to look into what actually happens inside the exhibits. All right. So in this case, okay, you are actually being tested on 2 skills. Right. So you are basically tested on this particular 2 skills. Okay, skepticism and communication skills. So you need to demonstrate, okay, why skepticism because of this particular element of criticizing this particular professional behavior and ethical behavior of this particular 2 people. All right, CEO and HR directors. Okay, only in relation to this design, conduct, and reporting of the staff satisfaction survey. So you need to actually criticize on this from this particular perspective only. All right. So what you are trying to criticize will be their ethical and professional behavior. All right. Okay, anything else? All right, so basically this is what we covered tonight is actually also part of what you have here. So let me just put here, all right, your technical knowledge. Okay, basically it's focusing more on ethical conduct, all right? All right, so I hope that settles what we have inside our actually specimen. So how many left that we have actually not gone through this yet? Okay, we have like question 2B, all right, okay. Perhaps after going through what tomorrow's area that we are able to actually complete this, all right, and then we are going to have this particular area as well. Okay, once I've actually done with the other areas tomorrow, so we will try and look and read the exhibits together and see what are the points that are in the exhibits that are actually related, right? Okay, and that you can actually use to answer the questions. Oh, my voice is actually running out of battery. Okay. Say waalaikumsalam. Okay. Okay, we will look into that. Okay, some of you actually wants to look into questions on bribery, see whether I can find any. All right, can't remember of any of those particular specimens. Okay. All right. Okay. So some of you actually were asking on actually fair and equitable. All right. So that one is actually referring to your Tucker's 5-question model just now. Okay. Just bear in mind, okay, having Tucker's 5-question model just now, okay, that one is one of the models. All right. If you were to read any other books that you may find other models that can help you to make better decisions. But under fair and equitable, basically, all right, we are talking about whether the decision that you are going to make, is it fair, okay, for the stakeholder, fair and equitable for the stakeholders, all right? So who are your stakeholders? Basically, who are your stakeholders? So it can be your employees, all right? Okay, so these employees can be your stakeholders, all right? And then the society that lives around your organization can also be stakeholders, all right? So it depends on what kind of I would say decision that you're trying to make. So make sure, okay, you look at the all aspect of your stakeholders, whether it's actually fair and equitable. Okay, you want me to show question? Okay, I will try and find some questions which I can actually use for this. All right. So most of you have already, okay, are already inside the WhatsApp group. Okay, doesn't mean that when the webinar ends, all right, our discussion ends. All right, since we are already in the WhatsApp group, I will continuously post something to you, okay, to make sure that you are okay, in your exam mode, all right, and exam mood, all right. So some of you are asking that how will it affect the company? I hope you can actually relate this to which particular question. I'm not quite sure. I can remember. All right, risk management, yes, okay. Okay, you are asking that, all right, is if let's say something that is legal, could it be fair? Also, it can or it may not. All right, so this is something that you have to actually understand. Sometimes, okay, all right, it is legal, but it may not actually be fair. All right. Okay, let me just like show you. There's another like specimen. Okay, this is basically, okay, the specimen that I have for, all right, so I may need to minimize this first so that I can, all right. Okay, this is actually specimen 3. Right, just to share with you, all right, this is basically specimen number 3. Okay, this one. Okay, what I want you to, okay, let's say since we have like a little bit more time here, okay, what do you think, okay, the syllabus area that this particular question number 1 is actually testing you on? You're supposed to prepare a report. This is a task, all right? You're actually supposed to basically assess, appraise 2 options from a strategic perspective. So basically you are supposed to be, all right, allow the board of Navy to actually compare what's happening. Okay, appraise, appraise 2 options from strategic perspective. All right, you're supposed to compare and contrast. What do you think is the syllabus area? Have a read on up here. Navy companies now considering whether to continue with the current business model of renovating an historic building and transforming it into a restaurant in Caputo, or to diversify the portfolio and enter the hotel industry by converting the former bank situated in the North Sealand into a hotel. The Board of Navy has requested an independent report on the 2 mutually exclusive investment options they are considering. All right, so what do you think is the syllabus area? This would be this would be your technical knowledge that you must have, okay, must understand is actually, this is actually coming from your optimizing strategic decision. So basically you are actually looking at which we have actually done yesterday. So you may want actually to look at, assessing and praising these particular two options. All right. So since here it says that you are going to assess and praise, and if you notice the professional skills is actually evaluation. So evaluation, okay, is where you should be demonstrating you're supposed to be demonstrating your ability to assess, all right, ability to estimate, and ability to appraise, all right. So it will be self-suitability, acceptability, and feasibility, all right. What do you think of this? This is what we have actually covered tonight. All right. Grammy has been giving consideration to your assessment of the two available options for Nehbi. He wants to understand more about the new investment will affect risk facing Nehbi company and the factors to consider when deciding on the financing decision for acquiring the hotel. All right. So basically this part we have not covered it. Okay, financing decision. So you have two parts here. Preparing briefing notes, you have A and B. So what you need to have under your explanation A is that, okay, you are supposed to be explaining the appropriateness of Navy company to diversify the risk by going into hotel business. All right. So basically, this is one of the ways for you to actually mitigate your risk. All right. So you need to actually explain the appropriateness of having this, okay, diversifying risk by going into the hotel business. All right. So the syllabus area that you are covering for this one is actually all right. So and ethical issues, right? Sustainability risk and ethical issues. All right. So basically, this is how you actually mitigate your risk. All right. Okay. Okay. Since like okay. Is there any more that we have already like covered? Okay, since let's say we have got like 10 minutes more to go, okay, I think I'll just stop here and I will continue again with you with this. Hopefully we have time, okay, like I told you, if we don't have actually time to actually discuss it here, we can actually still have time to actually discuss this further in our group, okay, but the discussion will take place only after the webinar. All right, okay, but just remind me, just in case that I have not actually sent you any of those annotated documents. So if you may want it, okay, I can actually post it to you, all of you. So hopefully we'll see again. I will see all of you again tomorrow night, right? So good night, everyone. All right. So hopefully to see you tomorrow. Okay. So at the meantime, please make sure that you do a lot of reading and make sure you download the app that I was mentioning to you. Okay, today it's free. The reading is free, definitely. Okay, the only thing that you have to do is you have to pay for your food bills. That's all. All right. So have a pleasant day tomorrow and good night.